Now, we've had a lot of talk in this space, especially on social media and so on, about, what happened with the chief secretary in respect to the licensing division. Now, we got a clip here of the chief secretary speaking about an encounter his wife had with the licensing officers that may have sparked some of the emotion that came forth at the executive council on Wednesday. And then after that, we are going to be showing you exactly what was said by the Transport Minister, Mr. Rohan Sidinan, as well as the head of the licensing division. They held a press conference yesterday where they dealt specifically with these things. So please stay locked in, and yeah, you can see for yourself, and then make your own opinions as to what's happening or how this situation is being developed.
There are some serious challenges that I must echo on behalf of the people of Tobago and certainly on behalf of this government. In the first instance, it should never be that we have hordes of officers coming up from Trinidad to terrorize Tobagonians. That should never be the case. That should not be how they operate. There must be a measure of respect with how they do their duties. We have been observing, getting reports, and yes, experiencing instances where licensed officers will just pull someone across what they believe is an infraction in the law or the regulation, and have people waiting 30, 40 plus minutes on the side of the road, just waiting without any further instruction. We have seen people turning up with tickets for minor things that we believe discretion could be used, because there are discretionary powers in the spirit of the law. There are discretionary powers assigned to the officers, and that seemed to not exist in Tobago's case. It seems like there is a mad rush to try to break some record in terms of the amount of monies collected through these tickets. And that is not how we operate. As a matter of fact, what has been happening for the rest of the year, all year, throughout the year, and the officers, why aren't the officers more visible during the year? It should not be once per year you show up, and you show up during our peak season. You become very disruptive in how you do the work. You disrupt traffic along our narrow carriageways. You indiscriminate in how you apply the law. And you think that's okay. That could never be okay. I also want to add that while that is happening, we continue to have not the most efficient licensing department that we could have. In fact, as we speak, we have empty offices allocated since what? 2016, 2017, or somewhere there, up at the Roxburgh Administrative Complex. Space already built out, taking cobweb. The office space already partitioned for license, just taking cobweb. And we could have easily dissected or distributed the services across the island to allow for people to get even greater access to services. That has not happened, and we get a commitment from the Secretary of Infrastructure that we are going to proceed to staff that place. Because last time I checked, licensing is under the 5th schedule. So we're going to proceed to do all that's necessary to staff the office in Roxborough. The matter of the actual licensing officers who are public officers, there is a process by which they are selected and promoted and moved. That process involves the DPA office out of Trinidad, but notwithstanding, we are going to do what we can on our end and ensure we staff that place to allow for greater efficiency in how they manage their duties. And I want to show you one video of how disruptive this thing is. And this was particularly disturbing to me because not so long ago, and these are people rushing for the bus. And one will know that a year ago, I spent quite a bit of time talking about how woefully inadequate our public transportation system or network is. And that in order to have our public transportation system working well, we need access to more buses, We need access to a transition hub, which we have plans for, which the plans are being finalized as we speak. And we need to be patient and in many ways accepting of a lot of these small buses that operate in the space. And if I was not in this position, I would more than likely have been one of the persons standing out there, rushing at garden side to catch the one bus to go up to country. Because that was my mode of transportation too. And it cannot be disrupted. I don't think it is of any value to either the licensing department or Ministry of Finance or whomever, wherever. No amount of tickets given out will pay for the economic fallout we have had over the past few days from the disruptions that we have had. And so that is certainly something that we are addressing, and we are telling you it's not going to happen again because...
All right, and that was Chief Secretary Falia Gussing on the licensing issues. Now we're going to go to the press conference now where Transport Minister Mr. Rohan Sinanan stated that no one in public office and their family is above the law. And we're also going to hear the head of the Transport Division speaking about the fact that these licensing exercises are going to continue in Tobago at least once a month. Here we go.
And Tobago.
Thank you very much, Minister, for allowing me the privilege to clarify and to also more or less discuss some of the challenges and the issues and about our operations in Tobago over the period April 13th to April 18th, 2023. The Licensing Division, in a coordinated effort, I want to stress on that, in a coordinated plan with the TTPS of Tobago, embark on a particular program to want to educate and to inform persons on the Road Traffic Act in Tobago, and as well as to conduct a series of road enforcement exercise. In so doing, the operation involved basically, as I mentioned, police officers from Tobago, and I want to identify those areas from Scarborough, traffic section, from Sherburne Road, task force, and police officers from Roxborough and from Charlottesville. We all came together to conduct and carry out this road safety exercise under the umbrella again of basically enforcement, to educate and to inform. In so doing, we issued approximately 735 pieces of literature on traffic safety, both to drivers, to their passengers, and in some cases we went door to door, house to house in Charlottesville. And we also met with the persons in their community and discussed matters relating to traffic safety. Apart from that, we took the opportunity to carry out a number of road exercises because of the fact, prior to visiting the island, we discovered, based on our records through the U-turn system, we have a number of drivers, we found a number of drivers with extremely high demerit points. And therefore, during our exercise, we were able to identify some of those persons, and we were able to commence the process by issuing what we call notice of disqualifications or intention to disqualify. Let me give you some statistics. During that exercise, we were able to identify 29 persons driving with demerit points ranging between 10 and 77 points. One individual was caught with 77 points driving on the nation's road, and we were able to commence the process in terms of addressing those issues. We found persons driving with expired permits and expired insurance, and therefore those are serious matters we had to treat with. And in some cases, we may talk to a bit later, persons driving without driver's permit, without a permit in their possession, and that's a matter that is of serious concern. We have discovered situations where we found rental vehicles being used or being rented without valid insurance. We have to address those issues. And ladies and gentlemen, while this may appear to be trivial to some, this could be devastating to families in the event of an accident. We found several defective vehicles spanning from cracked windshield, tires, number plate issues, just to name a few. And as Transport Commissioner, I have a responsibility together with the enforcement officers to ensure person safety. So therefore we took the initiative to treat with those situations as we met with them time to time. I need to also point out to the fact though that road exercises are conducted on an everyday basis in Trinidad by licensing officers. This is something not new to most of us. We conduct road exercises every day, as well as we have seen the need to do the same in Tobago. And therefore, we would have liaised with a few officers. We have there just a handful, just about 3 or 4, and therefore we saw it necessary to team up with the police officers to to do the same. I want to say also, because of what we have identified in our recent exercise, we also have seen the need for us to continue those operations on a more regular basis, where we may be seeking to send a smaller team probably on a monthly basis, and at some point a larger team will go. That is absolutely necessary so that we can bring things into perspective when it comes to traffic enforcement. I want to also take the opportunity to recognize the people of Tobago who would have welcomed us even on the road exercises, and those persons who are complying with the legislation. A high number of persons were pleased to know that we were on the ground and that we are doing something about the state of the driving practices within Tobago, and we have gotten that level of support. Over the period, we would have issued approximately 692 fixed penalties. And let me tell you this, I would have advised my staff that where possible we can show a level of leniency, let's do so. And we have to be able to understand there are situations that may lend to certain things, but we have a responsibility under the law to ensure that persons don't continue with those offenses. And therefore, when we look at records and recognize that person had warnings and so forth within the system and not complying with what was required, we had to take steps to ensure that we carry out our responsibility under the legislation. In doing so, we also had a particular incident I need to talk to. And because this could impact any one of us sitting here or persons in the public. We are charged with the responsibility as officers to basically ensure that we don't exercise any level of bias or be influenced by anyone in conducting our exercise. And my transport officers can tell you, under no circumstances will they ever receive a call from the Transport Commissioner in terms of not to issue a ticket to someone if they see an offense. I made it absolutely clear to my officers in their briefing that at any point in time, the Transport Commissioner called them and advised not to issue a particular ticket to John Doe, ensure that I am looking for a job the next day. Write me up. And in light of that, that is what we operate by with fairness on our nation's road. So there are situations when we have to show a level of leniency and when we have to enforce. But there's a common practice we find with some, and we saw it in Tobago, where persons sometimes drive without their driver's permit. Now, you may have a valid driver's permit, and for some reason, you may find yourself driving that vehicle without a driver's permit in the vehicle or in your possession. The law makes it very clear under Section 56, subject to correction, that the driver, yes, 56, the driver must have that permit on your possession or in the vehicle. Failure to do so, certain actions can be taken by a licensing officer. One, and that action is one whereby we can issue a summary offense. Now, what we do as officers, even the police officers at times, because we have access to information, we use that. So we will have a conversation with the offender and verify that person has a permit. Because if you don't have a permit, that is now classified as never issued. And that puts you into a different category. It puts you in a category where you can be arrested immediately. But in this case, if you have a permit, we don't, and you can prove to us you have a permit, we do not arrest you in the context of that offense. We give you the opportunity to make that available to us. So first thing that normally happens is that we advise you that the vehicle must be pulled aside, and you have to make arrangement to get someone to drive that vehicle or to have that permit delivered to us on site. And in a particular incident, this was done. Someone was stopped by a licensing officer from Tobago in a road exercise. And in doing so, a particular individual, a female, did not identify herself, and that is critical for us because we are not interested in terms of who the person is at that point in time. Mentioned to us that their permit, for some reason, is not with them. So the standard operating procedures were more or less followed. Shortly thereafter, we recognized an unmarked vehicle with blue flashing light came up to the exercise. And that person would have made a statement to the point that I am here concerning that particular vehicle, and point out that vehicle. And therefore we had a situation whereby, in keeping with standard operating procedures, the question was asked for proof of identification by the assigned licensing officer from Tobago. And in doing so, the person at the point in time failed to provide that level of proof of identification. And therefore, that situation basically escalated to the point where backup was called from the transport person side at a different location. The individual would have came, and subsequent to that, the person driving the vehicle would have identified himself as a police officer, and therefore would have then comply and provide his proof of identity to the other licensing officer. Shortly thereafter, someone came in, and I want to use the term to say basically who we were made to understand, the husband of that person, who we also made to understand someone in senior public office from Tobago would have came and basically brought the permit and other and let me use the term instruments, and provided to the driver. We would have already verified the permit, so the driver was allowed to go, and a conversation would have occurred where certain information were then validated. I want to say, however, what is important here for us to note is that that matter, or any matter of those kind, once you do not have your permit, as I mentioned, according to the Act, it can be more or less addressed by a summary offense. So therefore, I am saying the matter is not yet closed. We have 6 months to treat with the matter, and we are still deliberating how we will move forward with the matter. I want to make it absolutely clear, the matter is not yet closed. It's a summary offense. We will have triggered standard operating procedures to deal with such. I want to take the opportunity, as I close, to inform members of the public of the importance of checking your documents and checking for your documents before you drive your vehicle. We at licensing are going through a transformation exercise, and part of those exercise we are seeking to change the regulations for class 3, which is that exam most persons do for their first license. We're also seeking to change the driving test, where we will now mark those type of practices. When the student come into the vehicle, you must ensure that vehicle is inspected. You must ensure that vehicle have the proper documents. You must ensure that you have your license. So you are practicing for when you're on the road to meet enforcement officers. You are driving a vehicle that is duly registered, duly insured, and fit for purpose on the nation's road. So again, I'm encouraging persons to ensure your documents are intact when driving. Thank you.
So, members of the media, you heard from the Transport Commissioner about the exercise that has been taking place in Tobago, not just this period, but from inception. Trinidad, the authorities in Trinidad, the Transport Commissioner is in charge of Trinidad and Tobago. He has a team in Tobago which comprise people from Tobago, and from time to time, officers from Trinidad that will go up and assist them. We work closely with the Tobago House of Assembly because of the structure that is in place in terms of the jurisdictions from the Ministry of Works and Transport in Trinidad and those that govern the operations in Tobago. However, it is clear that the Transport Commissioner is in charge of the license offices and the officers in both Trinidad and Tobago. I felt very, disappointed to hear a senior, I would say statesman, a senior politician, trying to give the impression that Trinidad officers were terrorizing people in Tobago. This is law enforcement. We just had a 2-day symposium on crime where leaders from the entire Caribbean came down and were trying to address this drastic problem that we have. And if leaders are seeing law enforcement in that way, starting from the inspection on the road, what is the signal that we are sending? I want to believe this entire situation happened because of the incident that the Transport Commissioner spoke about. And I want to inform the population that no one is above the law. And if you're stopped on the road, there's a way to deal with it. No one in high office or relatives or family could cancel a system that was put in place by the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. I can tell you the Transport Commissioner will never liaise with me as to when they're going out on exercise in Trinidad, in Tobago. Politicians cannot get involved in that. And again, I want to say no one is above the law. The Transport Commissioner and his team has to do what they have to do. The traffic wardens have to do what they have to do. The police service have to do what they have to do. No one in public office or any member of their family is above the law. And if an incident occurs, that does not mean we have to cancel what is in place. I have gotten a letter today from the Secretary of Infrastructure in Tobago, who claims that he wants to have a meeting with me on the Transport Commissioner and the operations. I have no problem meeting with anyone from Tobago, especially the Secretary for Infrastructure. He's my counterpart in Tobago, and I will give him that respect. But one thing I will not do is try to influence any of the officers by trying to tell them how to do their work when it comes to law enforcement. So members of the media, it is unfortunate that a statement like that could be made at this time when we're trying to address crime in all its form, because road safety and the Transport Commissioner's duty is not about raising funds through fines and so. It's about road safety and security. Almost all the crimes that are committed in Trinidad are vehicles used. And from the Transport Commissioner's point of view, they have that responsibility to try to keep a record on the vehicles in Trinidad, and that is why the transformation of the license office is so important and critical for us. But we must respect that everyone has their duty, and as politicians, we are there to support them, not to bring them down and break them. All right, so I intend to meet with the Secretary for Infrastructure in Tobago to find out what are the challenges, and if there's anything that can be done within the law, I'm quite prepared to work with them to get it done. But what I'm not prepared to do is to get involved and to stop the officers from doing their duty. So if there are any questions, you're free to put them forward. I want to be very careful, as the Commissioner said, that the exercise in question, there are some of the findings that are still open because they have not decided what course of action they're taking, so I have to be very careful as to what we're speaking about. So, any questions? Well, I got the letter today. I just saw a glimpse of it that he said he was trying to call me sometime yesterday or the day before. I will respond to him by today, and I will invite him to a meeting as urgent as soon as he can make it. I am quite prepared, and I've always said that we are there to make the lives of the citizens, you know, as comfortable as possible within the law of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, my first reaction to the statement was, no, I couldn't believe a statement like that would be made until I saw proof of it. And that's why I said I'm disappointed in the statement. And I still say that it's very unfortunate. And I think the Transport Commissioner would have cleared up perception that they went up there to terrorize anybody. That is not, I don't think that is the language that anybody should be using right now. Because we are in a society where the citizens are very tense. We recognize we have a serious crime challenge throughout the Caribbean, and I think as leaders we have a responsibility in the way we address certain things.
That's right, and let me just say though, we do work with a number of standard operating procedures based on the different type of incidents, and we have maintained that standard operating procedure for this incident. And I also want to say, this is, during our exercise in Tobago, as I mentioned, we have found several persons driving without driver's permit and had to bring it on site to leave the vehicle and come back, etc. It's not the first, wasn't the only one of that kind. So, and again, the same approach would have been used. A matter of fact, let me just say, we had a situation whereby on the first day or first exercise, a young man was faced with that situation, and then shortly thereafter we had a tourist, if I put it that way, a foreigner, who had a permit and eligible to drive, and the person did not have their permit on them, and we used the same approach. The person came and cooperated quite nicely. So it's standard operating procedures we operate by when treating with those matters.
And let me just address something, and that is why this statement is so unfortunate, that Trinidadians are trying to terrorize, Trinidad officers are terrorizing. My information from the Transport Commissioner is that it was not an officer who went up from Trinidad to assist in the operations. It was a Tobago-based officer from Tobago, the licensing division in Tobago. Am I correct?
Yes, assigned to the license.
Assigned to the license officers. But whether it is someone from Trinidad or it is someone from Tobago, all they're doing is that they're doing their job. And their job is simply to try to protect us on the side of road safety, and in a lot of these exercises, you pick up criminal activities as well. So we need to cooperate with law enforcement if we have to make this transition from the direction we're going with crime to really where we want to go. And no one, despite your stature, your relative status or whatever it is, so try in any way to demoralize the servicemen who are trying to make our lives safer. And that's just the takeaway point here. It's unfortunate because suppose my officers say they're not going to go to Tobago, right? And I have 2 or 3 officers in Tobago, and then Tobago becomes a place where road carnage just started to get out of hand, and nobody is insured in Tobago. And it could turn out to be a situation that none of us will want. Because we all have family, we all go to Tobago. It's a beautiful place, and we want to keep it that way. We want to keep it that way, and again, I intend to work with the THA to make sure that we give that sense of comfort, safety, and satisfaction. That word of terrorize, that is uncalled for. It's in the best interest of all of us if we could have a safer Trinidad and Tobago. All right, so I look forward to meeting with the THA, but whatever decision we take will be within the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. So, is there any other questions? I don't know, expired bus route passes. There are bus route passes issued in Trinidad and Tobago, and we have a limited amount. There are certain people who are entitled to it, and certain people who get a courtesy pass. The people who are entitled, they have already gotten theirs. So people who get a courtesy pass, I mean, this is not something that you're entitled to. But because of the whole aspect of people get it this year, they think they're entitled to it. No, you're not entitled to it. The people who are entitled to it based on their job description, they have already gotten theirs. The people who are haven't gotten those are courtesy passes that if you get it, just say thank you. You don't get it, just say, well, hard luck. Everybody can't get a bus route pass because it's something that we have to manage. The bus route is really for mass transportation, but the minister does have a little discretion based on a quantity. If you didn't get it as yet, it means you wasn't entitled to it. That is it.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks a favor to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong.